All right, everyone. So now we actually jump into looking at conditionals in Java. And there's a couple things we need to go over. All right. So we're going to start off first by remembering what we did before. So last week we talked about that we can create any kind of variable. Oh, and by the way, don't worry about, anything that's in here. This is just an IDE to write some Java code. So you don't need to know anything that you see that looks a little confusing there. So last week we talked about we can declare variables. So we know we can do like something like int x. That's declaring a variable. And then we can set x equal to, and we can pick, an integer, so 5. So that is declaring, and this is initializing. Okay? And we can do that whenever we want to. We can declare and initialize. And we know we have ints, we have doubles, we have strings, we have booleans. Okay, so those are the 4 that we know right now and that we can use. All right. And we should also know, some of us had a little trouble on this, that you can do this. This is fine. But a lot of times, instead of doing this in 2 lines, we can do this in a single line of code by doing that. Okay, so some of us kind of missed that last week. Make sure you understand that we can write this in a single line of code into x equals 5. All right, so let's jump down into our conditional now. So to do a conditional, it's just if, and then you open a parenthesis and close it, and then I like to put an open bracket, close bracket. Okay, now this is where your true or false condition has to go. So I need to say something that will be either true or false. So I'm going to start out very easy and say, I have this variable called x. So I can make a true or false condition here. I can say if x is, greater than 3, then do something. And right now, for the only thing that we're going to do is this thing in Java that just prints out something. So I can say greater than 3. And you should know that this is in quotes, so it's a string. So let's see if this runs, because x is greater than 3, so x is 5. So 5 is greater than 3, so this should print out. So let's run this. So I hit run, and you can see it says greater than 3. If I change this to a 2, you might suspect that nothing's going to happen, because this is not true, and then I have nothing else after it. So that's where we can come in. If we wanted something to happen, we can put our else in there. And we open up our bracket and close our bracket, and I can say, print out less than or equal to 3. Okay? So now if I run this, it will say less than or equal to 3, because I had that check in there, that if else. By the way, if you only have one line of code, sometimes you'll see me do this. If you only have one line of code in this if statement, you don't need these brackets. Okay, but make sure if you have something else in here, you don't want to do something, print out something here, because it will happen. All right. So just to give an example of this, just to show you, let me just get rid of this. If I have x equals 2, let me make this greater than. Let's have this work here. So actually, let's do this. Let's have this less than. So this is still 2. This is not true, but it's still going to print out hello, okay, because I have 2 lines. So it's smart enough to know that this will not run, but this will. So if you ever want 2 lines in your if statement, you do need these brackets, okay? So now this nothing will run in this case because they're in brackets. So I typically try and use brackets, but if you only have one line of code, you don't technically need them. Okay, so that's kind of where we're sitting at with an if statement. Now, a couple things we can look at here just to make sure we're good. Well, obviously, we have greater than, we have less than. Okay, we have greater than or equal to. So just to make sure we're okay on this one, if I put in here, let's do greater than or equal to 3. So if I put in 3 here, okay, this will run because it's greater than or equal to 3. If I just put greater than 3, this will not run. So we have greater than or equal to, okay, And as you expect, we probably have less than or equal to. So those are pretty self-explanatory. Now the one that we want to talk about is what if I want to see if it's equal to? Now we've discussed this already. You can see once I put one equal sign, it gets confused. There's an error because remember, this is not a true or false because one equal sign assigns this to 3. So if you're checking, you want 2 equal signs. So now this is saying if x is equal to 3, so if then print out, I should say equal to 3 in this case. All right. So if I run this, it will work. All right. So let me know if you have any questions on that. So the couple things you need to know there, and I'll put down in notes that you can have. Make sure you know that there's a greater than sign. So greater than, we know there's a less than, and then this is greater than or equal to. And then less than or equal to. And then finally, 2 equal signs checks to see if it is equal to. Okay, so make sure you know those. All right. I'm going to add in one other thing we're going to kind of discuss here, which is going to be this sign called modulus. And this is something that you don't know. There'll be some questions on this on the assignment. All right. So we're going to go over modulus, and we'll come back to some if statements using modulus and discuss that. So if you need to pause there for a minute and kind of take that in with the if statement, you can do that. All right. So let's talk about this modulus thing here. So I'm going to just get rid of this. So we know, I'm just going to bring up this printout. Modulus is actually no difference in operation. So if I do print out 2 plus 2, and I run this, you see here I get 4. Computers can do some simple arithmetic or operations. So 2 minus 2, I can do, let's change the number around a little bit. I can multiply, okay. I can divide. Now you're going to be interested on this because it's going to give you 0. I'll discuss that in a later date, but I'll make it nice. It does work. This will give you 2. It's because an integer divided by an integer will always be an integer. It just chops off the decimal places. But if I did this kind of goes back to what we talked about with doubles and ints, but we'll have this discussion there. It works as you might anticipate. So it's weird that it doesn't work in this case, but it does work with the point 0. But anyhow, we're not talking about that right now. We have operations. So we have multiplication, we have division, we have addition, subtraction. Now, we also have this thing called modulus. So it's an operation, okay? So you're going to see here I get out 0. So 6 modulus 3 is equal to 0. If I do 5 modulus 3, you're going to get 2. And 2 modulus 3 will give me 2. 3 modulus 3 will be 0. So what this is doing is it's kind of like division. However, it's only printing out the remainder. Okay, so I'll say grabs the remainder. So let's talk about this. How many times, and it goes this way, and let me just change this to an easier way. So this, let's print this out. Let's run this. We get 0. So it's asking itself, how many times does 3 go into 6? So 3 goes into 6 2 times with a remainder of 0 with none left over. So 3 goes into 6 2 times with none left over. That is why you get 0. Let's just change this, see if this makes sense. Let's try a 4. So how many times does 4 go into 6? Well, 4 goes into 6 one time, but then you take away the 4 from there out of the 6 and you're left with 2. So that will print out 2. So how many times does 4 go into 6? Once, with 2 remainder, with 2 left over. I can change this down again. Let's change some numbers around a little bit here. I'll make this a little bit bigger. So 9, and let's do 4 here. So how many times does 4 go into 9? Well, that's twice with 1 left over. So that's why it kicks out a remainder of 1. So very simply, a modulus is just a remainder. The one question that we get a little confused on is sometimes when this number is lower. So usually students are fine if I have this number higher because it's always going, how many times does this go into that? So hopefully you guys know this will print out 0. So we have no problem there, but it's always interesting when I have something like this. So when I have this, it's still the same question though. So how many times does 4 go into 1? Well, 4 goes into 1 no times. 4 doesn't go into 1. But I still have a remainder of 1. There's still that 1 left over. So if it's ever lower than that number, how many times does 4 go into 2? Well, 4 doesn't go into 2. So, but there's still 2 left over. Okay. So if this was 0, though, this would be 0. So this would be 3. And then now here is when you kick to 0 again. Because how many times does 4 go into 4? 1 time with a remainder of 0. So just be careful. The only time students really struggle sometimes or they're not sure is when this number is lower. But if I even did something as big as this, if I go, this would print out 1, this would print out 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way, even if I ran this, it's going to print out 19. And as soon as I get to 20, it's going to print out 0. And then if I go to 21, I'm hoping you guys know that that will print out 1 because there's going to be 1 left over. Okay, so there's some questions on that on modulus. You can stop this video right now if you want to, head over to the worksheet and fill out those modulus questions if you want. And then you can come back and I'm going to pick up with some if statements with modulus. Okay, so if you're good, you can keep going. If not, you can pause it right there. So to come back with some modulus and conditionals, we have, let's just make a number here, int x equals 6. And if I want to tell if this number is even or odd, so I want an if statement here to tell if this number is even or odd. So I'm going to print out number is even. And I'm going to print out here else print out number is odd. All right, so what can I do here? Now, a lot of you will say, you know, if it's 2, 4, 6, or 8, if it ends in 2, 4, 6, or 8, it's going to be, or 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8, it's going to be even. And yeah, you're going to get in trouble, though, because what if I give you 126? You know, you're not going to be able to check all those. So what you can do is you can use modulus. Because what I can say here is, instead of using, by the way, instead of using the number, I'm going to use x now. I'm just doing some substitution. So I'm going to say if x modulus 6 is equal to, or if x modulus 2 is equal to 0, print out even. Now I want you to sit there and think about that for a minute. All right, because I made a number that's 6, so let's just replace this. All you're doing is substituting in. So this is x is really just 6. So how many times does 2 go into 6? 2 goes into 6 3 times with a remainder of 0. So let's just see if this works. Number is even. Even if I change this number to 8 now, and this is just 8. So how many times does 2 go into 8? 2 goes into 8 4 with a remainder of 0. Because if 2 goes into the number and has a remainder of 0, it will be even. Think if I put 24 here, does 2 go into 24? Yeah, with no remainder. But what happens when I put an odd number? If I put a 5? If I have a modulus with 2, how many times does 2 go into 5? 2 goes into 5 2 times, but I have a remainder of 1, not a remainder of 0. So this does not equal 0 in this case, and it will print out odd. And every time I do this, it will work. Number is odd. Okay. Oops. Number is even. So modulus is very interesting of how I can use it. Now, if I use this, you can think about it. It will only work for what? I can think about what this will work for. Really, I can change this. It won't be even. It's not even and odd anymore. In this case, it's going to run, it's going to run this one really. But I can think about this would run if it's a multiple of, the number is a multiple of 3, because it's only going to work for 3. Number is a multiple of 3. Number is not a multiple. I'll just put not. So if I run 5, it's going to be not a multiple of 3. But if I run 6, it will work. So I want you to kind of sit back and think about how that modulus is working to try and understand that. All right. Any questions on that? Please feel free to send me a message. I can get back to you. I can even do some Google Meets this week to kind of clear that up. All right. So that takes care of some if statements with modulus. Now the final thing I want to talk about, and I'm throwing a lot at you here, is and or, because a lot of times you want more than one thing in this statement. Okay, so I'm going to go back and make this a little easier with and or, but we can make this as complicated as I want to. But what if I want a number just between, I want the number between 0 and 10. So if, and then I'm just going to kind of deal with my condition in a second. I'll print out, if the number is this, then print out number is between 0 and 10. And we can think of inclusive and exclusive. Do you want it to include 0 and 10? We can discuss that. And you're going to have to do that in your assignment. And then number is not between 0 and 10. Got to work on typing there. All right. So I'm going to need actually 2 conditions. And I can start off and think about it easily. So if number is greater than or equal to 0, okay, it will say number, that'll get this. So this will work. Okay, numbers between 0 and 10, although, if I put in 20 here, it's going to work as well there. So I kind of got it working, but it's not going to work for negatives. So negatives, that'll clear that out. Number is not between 0 and 10. So that's kind of working there. But now I need to get the upper end. And unfortunately, it's not like math class where you can put a compound condition or inequality in there. You actually have to write out the whole thing. So I need to say if x is greater than or equal to 0 and x is less than or equal to 10. So this means and. Okay. So now this will work. So 5 is between 0 and 10. Let's just drop it out of there. This should be not between 0 and 10 and not between 0 and 10. And it works. So this is how you do an and. And we're only going to stick with 2. So it'll be this and that. The only way you will get into this is if both of these are true. I think, I said this in class before. It's like if I ask you to go downstairs to the cafeteria and get me a drink and chips. I'm only satisfied if you come back with both. So if both of these are true, then I'm okay and you're inside of that if statement. If one of these is false, you're outside of it. And that's why you got to be careful with what is called or. Now, the 2 vertical brackets is how you do an or statement. So now this changes because this is saying if x is greater than or equal to 0 or x is less than or equal to 10. So now both of these don't have to be true. Only one of them does. So you can see now that this will not work for the number 12. It will say the number is between 0 and 10. And why? Because 12 is greater than or equal to 0. So this was true. This was false, but it's an or. It doesn't matter. As long as one of them are true, it will run. So be very careful on the or, the difference between an or and an and. An and both have to be true in order to get in, and an or, only one of them has to be true. All right? That is covered everything I need to. So the couple things you need to know is how to write an if statement and an else statement in Java. You need to know that there's a greater than, a less than, a greater than or equal to, a less than or equal to. You need to understand modulus, and you need to understand and or. Okay, I can use modulus with ors. You can kind of think about some stuff. This will tell me if it's even, or it's a multiple of 3. Okay, something like that. So now this will run, it's even. I'm not going to stay between 0 and 10, but this will work. But so will a number like 15. Now 15 is not even, but it is a multiple of 3. So, and I have an or. So this will work in that case. So that would run this line of code. So kind of keep that in mind. Like I said, let me know if you have any questions, and hopefully you can go from there. All right. Good luck.